Hi there, my name is Farai Mubaiwa, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today about this topic of when passion leads to burnout. So just before we go into some detail on, what exactly we mean when we say when passion leads to burnout, I just want to give you a bit of context about who I am. So like I said, my name is Farai Mubaiwa, and the most simple way to describe me is that I am someone who is passionate about the empowerment of youth, particularly the empowerment of African youth, more specifically, the empowerment of young African women. And I use the word empowerment rather than helping because I find the word helping means that you see yourself as being higher than someone else. Whereas if you're empowering someone, you see them as a human being as well. And so the goal is to then work with them to ensure that they can reach the best version of themselves. So I'm really excited to be here today to be able to talk to you about when passion leads to burnout. This is a topic that I feel really strongly about. And before I go into that, I'll just give a bit of context into what I do and then why it is important for us to be having this conversation today. So firstly, I am the co-founder of Africa Matters. Africa Matters is a youth-led organization which is committed to upskilling youth so that they can change the narrative through community impact projects. So we focus a lot on different skills, from leadership skills to social entrepreneurship to soft skills building. We've got different programs, and thank you to the Africa Matters team for setting this up, because that's exactly why we're having this session that we're having today. The other hat I wear is that I am a project manager here at the Aurum Institute, and Aurum's work focuses primarily on HIV and TB. And the project I run looks at upskilling unemployed youth and deploying these youth to clinics so that A, we're ensuring that unemployed youth get work experience, and B, we're ensuring that through the work youth do in the clinics, we're able to combat HIV. So I think what you can see from these two examples is that the work I do really speaks to each other, whether in the Africa Matters capacity or in the Aurum capacity. The third hat I wear, and I think it's definitely how this topic stemmed from, it's that in my spare time, whatever of that is left, I do short videos called on a platform called Tips from Millennial Managers, which basically is me sharing my own experience of being a young Black woman in the workplace. And one of the topics I touched on is this one of when passion leads to burnout. And so the reason I think it's important to discuss this is because very often the idea that we have of a leader is that leaders have to be these overachievers, that leaders are not human, that leaders must continue to push themselves beyond their greatest capacity to serve. And I think that's actually a very counterproductive view to have of leadership. I believe that leaders should be authentic. And the one thing I'll be authentic with you about today is that I am not perfect. I don't believe I can do it all. And I just want to be a human being that is able to empower others and be okay doing so as well. So to be physically and mentally and emotionally okay in doing that work. And so in today's webinar, you'll see a lot of vulnerability coming through. And I hope that through me sharing my experiences, it enables those of you to also be able to share your own experiences, to also be honest and realistic with yourselves about the experiences that you've had, and to practice self-care. I think we talk a lot about self-love, but what does that really mean, and are we really practicing self-love? And so the type of burnout I want to focus on today is purpose-driven burnout. This is when, you've got this drive for impact, and because of that, that's the reason you're burning out. So now that we've laid out the context, right, let's go into the first question. And the first question, and please remember to post any questions or feedback or any other comments that you'd like to post. It'll be great to really engage with you on this. The first question we're looking at today is, what exactly is burnout? And so I took the definition from the World Health Organization, which says that burnout due to chronic workplace stress is categorized as three things. Firstly, the depletion of energy. Secondly, mental distance from one's job or negative perceptions towards your job because of this chronic workplace stress. And then thirdly, reduced efficacy. So these three things work hand in hand to identify what burnout is. It is a depletion of energy, it is a mental distance from your job, and that is reduced efficacy, all because of the fact that you're experiencing workplace stress. And it's interesting because if you're just hearing how burnout is categorized, These are all really, really difficult things for someone to go through. These are difficult experiences for someone to go through. And yet, for the longest time, it wasn't considered as something serious until recently. And I think for the longest time, burnout was deprioritized because it was often seen as, this disease that millennials are making up so that they can take time off work from time to time, or that millennials are making up because we're apparently very dramatic. And I don't think that's true. And I think the fact that the World Health Organization recently recognized and classified burnout as an actual disease shows you just how important it is to take burnout seriously, and just how debilitating workplace stress can be to even your best employees. And so then it's important that, we talk about burnout. It's a real thing. And I mean, in just sharing these different symptoms of burnout, if any of you do relate to it, I want to encourage you to recognize it, and then to also act, and together we do something about it. So now we get what burnout is, right? It is chronic workplace stress resulting in the depletion of energy, mental distance from one's job, and reduced efficacy. So who's most at risk, right? Because I guess the question that you're probably asking is, am I at risk for burnout? And what we find is that people who work in the care industry are most at risk for burnout. Now, what do I mean by care industry? This can refer to people who are NGO workers. It can refer to teachers, doctors, nurses, anyone that is in an industry that requires them to care for others. And that is what purpose-driven burnout is all about. It's when you are driven by the purpose to impact the lives of others, and because of that, you burn out as a consequence. And the reason you burn out is because care industries, if you think about it, require so much of you. A lot of other industries will only require your mental capabilities, or at times your physical capabilities. But in the care industry, it requires your mental capabilities, your physical capabilities, as well as your emotional capabilities. So what we're finding is that you're working in an industry that requires all of these three really important things from you: mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And often in these industries, for us to achieve impact, we work really, really long hours. And then these are the three demand areas that are then affected by these long hours. So this is then what leads to burnout. So we've now conceptualized what exactly leads to burnout. We now realize that if you're in the care industry, you're more prone to burnout. So I want to encourage us to all just take a moment to think. Take a moment of reflection. Think of yourself. Think of the work you do. Think of the times that you've ever experienced any of these symptoms. Think of the times whether you felt emotionally, physically, and mentally drained from work all at once. And if you do resonate with each of these experiences, then burnout is not unfamiliar to you. And then I also want to remind you that you're also not alone. You're also not the only person that is experiencing burnout, and there are a community of us out there who are able to support you in these experiences that you are going through. And I think that's the most important thing. Very often people in the workplace are afraid to share their experiences of burnout because of fears that they'll be isolated or called incompetent. But you're not the only one experiencing it. And it's important that we start to prioritize burnout and what it means and how it affects our colleagues and employees. And so now, how then do we cope with burnout, right? And I want to make a disclaimer in saying that I am not an expert at all. I am not a medical practitioner. I am not a medical doctor. I don't have my MCHBB, whatever, the qualification is. But I've learned my own coping mechanisms, which I'd love to share with you today. And I'd like to take you through these and to pick what works for you. Also, if you're on this and you're watching, I know we've got Instagram and Facebook Live as well. Share with me what has worked for you. And I'd also really, really love to learn from you. So I want to make it clear that this is a very reciprocal conversation and not me acting like the messiah of burnout. So how I cope with my own burnout is that firstly, I've learned, and not doing particularly well at it, but I've learned that I need to put myself first. And it sounds strange because then you're probably thinking, but if Farai is in a care industry, how can she put herself first? But here's the thing. If I don't put myself first, and if I don't prioritize me and my well-being, I won't have anything else to give to anyone. If I'm not showing myself compassion, but I'm showing compassion to everyone else, I'm doing myself a disservice. Because by me not showing myself compassion and working myself until I can't physically work anymore, I will then have nothing to give to anyone else that demands anything of me. And if you think about this scenario, for example, if you have an empty cup, you cannot pour into the cup of others. And so it's important that you are pouring into your own cup. So that's been a journey that I've been on personally, to try and understand, what does it mean to put Farai first? What does it look like? Maybe it is not pushing myself to arrive at work at 7 a.m. because in my mind that is what a competent employee does. But arriving at 9 and knowing that the work is done. Or even being able to take a run on the weekend because I want to, or forcing myself to go to gym because of the fact that it makes me happy, and because of the fact that I can then put my stress somewhere else. Or realizing some days when I wake up that I'm not okay, and being honest with my team that, guys, this is how I'm feeling today. I won't be able to give that much. Can I please ask you to step up in your leadership? I'm learning slowly to put Farai first. Small things like not responding to emails after 6 p.m. or having the conversation with my boss to be like, listen, I want to do this work, but this is what I can physically do right now. Can you please understand that? So that's the journey I'm on. And I'd like to encourage you as well to also think about, what does it mean to put yourself first? What does it mean to show yourself compassion? Because I'm sure that if you're watching this, you show so many other people compassion, but are you doing the same for yourself? Are you filling up your cup the same way in which you're filling up the cups of others? The second way in which I cope with burnout is to set boundaries. And it sounds strange, right? Because if you're in the care industry, you must give, and give. If someone needs your help, your immediate reaction is to respond as soon as possible, because you want to ensure that that person that you are empowering or working with has got the best possible help. And unfortunately, it is not always possible to do that. You need to be able to set boundaries for yourself. Now, what does it mean to set boundaries? And I mean, this is something, again, that I'm constantly teaching myself. It's about understanding that this idea of a work-life balance is not just an idea, it's a necessity. If I still want to be relevant in the workplace 30 years from now, I need to get this work-life balance right now. Because if I don't get it right now, 30 years from now, 2 years from now, there'll be nothing left of me to give. And so I've learned in small ways to set boundaries for myself. The first thing that I'm trying to do is to say, all right, no responses to emails or WhatsApps after 6 p.m., no responses before 7 a.m. Because by the time I get home, it is time for me. It is time for me to unwind. It is time for me to just chill. It is time for me to have a glass of wine. It's time for me to bond with those who I love. It's also time for me to do fun things, to go out with friends. It is a time to distance myself from the workplace, because in doing that, I am still living. I am maintaining this work-life balance. Yes, I'm working hard, but I'm also able to then detach from the work I do to continue living life. And I think that's a balance that we tend to struggle with as people who are in the care industry. The second thing I've learned, which I'm not always doing well in, I'll admit that at least twice a week I've got some slip-ups here and there, but it's to try and not open my laptop once I get home. Unless it's an emergency, I always try to think to myself, will Africa Matters or will Aurum burn down if I don't send this email out? And chances are it won't, right? And we need to be realistic with ourselves. And I always think to myself, especially in the Aurum context where I push myself, I always ask myself, will Aurum burn down if I don't send this email to my boss right now? No, it won't, because Aurum was working well before I came. It'll work well after I go, so it won't actually burn down. The same light for Africa Matters. Will Africa Matters stop working if I don't do X, Y, and Z now? No, it won't. Why? Because I've got a great team that is able to do the work in any case. And that's also what I've had to learn this year about my leadership style. That the sign of a good leader is someone who can step away from the work and come back and still find everything running smoothly. And if you as a leader constantly feel that you've got to micromanage every single step of the process, then it's important to reflect on your leadership style. Because what you should be doing is aiming to make yourself replaceable, so that if you are replaceable, your projects, your initiatives, your legacies can still continue to run even in your absence. So that's the second thing, about asking myself, do I need to do this? Will it be the end of the world if I don't do this? And I've realized that being able to prioritize and asking myself such questions accordingly has helped not only me, but also my mental health and well-being as well. The other thing is that WhatsApp is so accessible, right? So you'll be online on WhatsApp and someone will send a message saying, hey, Farai, I sent you online. Please, can you do X, Y, and Z? No, it's not working hours. So, I mean, I don't know how many of you want to take this risk, but if I get any after-hour WhatsApps, I'll look at them and then only respond the next day. Or sometimes I won't even look at them. I'll only respond the next day in any case, because just because social media means that we are highly connected all the time does not mean that I have to be highly connected all the time. I need times for me to switch off so that I can be able to consistently perform my best. The other thing in terms of setting boundaries is to have the conversation with your employer. So something that I made quite clear to my boss a few months ago is to say that I want to create a humane working environment, and it's the same thing I try to implement with my team, either here at Aurum or the team with African Matters. But is to say that in creating a humane working environment, it's recognizing that people are people have lives. So you can't always be demanding work of them, because yes, work is important, but it is not the only aspect of your life. A lot of people have families, have got children, have got partners, responsibilities, and that should be enjoyed. We need a work environment where we're not seeing each other as machines, but we're seeing each other as people. And I find that the more you're creating a humane work environment, the better people perform. And that is something that I'd like to encourage any employers who are watching. Create a humane work environment, because honestly, that is what will increase your productivity. It's about having teams and employees that want to come to work, because they know that at work, they're not just statistics, they're not just machines. They are people who are valued for their efforts and their contributions, because the environment is humane. The last thing I want to touch on with boundaries is that I often find that if you are younger and you're in the workplace, the expectation is that, no, you don't have kids. So because you don't have kids or you don't have a family, you can work all the long hours that everyone else is not working because of their familial responsibilities. And I want to cut that today. Just because you may not have a family, or you may not have kids, or you may not have to do school drop-offs and pickups, does not mean that you should be burning yourself out for the sake of a company. You as an employee are just as valuable, just as capable as anyone else within that company. So don't allow yourself to be abused in that space. You have a life, you need to enjoy it, you need to live it. So set those boundaries for yourself so that there'll always be more of you to give. The third way in which I deal with burnout is that I've learned to listen to my body. Now, when I say listen to my body, and also to listen to my mind as well, there are some mornings when I wake up and I'm just not okay. And then I need to ask myself, why is it that I'm not okay? Is it something that happened? Is my body just exhausted? Have I been pushing myself too much? And very often after having those moments of reflection, I'm then able to then react to my body and to give myself time. So whether that means, like I said earlier, not coming into work at 7 a.m., but coming into work at 9, that'll be me then listening to my body. Or whether that means working from home, if that is an option within your employment space, or whether that means, choosing to postpone the implementation of a project. It's about listening to your body, because when you listen to your body, you're ensuring that you are aligned. Because if you push your body too much, there'll come a day when it gives up on you. And that's not what you want in a world that is demanding so much of you as someone who is in the care industry, or as anyone in general. The world demands so much of us. So you need to be listening to your body and listening to yourself emotionally to ensure that you're giving yourself the appropriate time to rest, because I can assure you that after resting sufficiently, you'll be able to jump into action and be as effective as you can be. The fourth boundary to set is that you are entitled to annual leave. I work with amazing people who, because we all love what we do so much, no one wants to take leave. But you are entitled to annual leave. Annual leave is there for a reason. It is a statutory requirement for you to take annual leave because as an employee, it's not sustainable to continue working and working and working without having actual leave. So you are entitled to annual leave. Take your leave and don't feel bad. Like I said, the organization that you're working in will not break down or crumble without you. If it was there before you, it can be there after you. And you stepping back to go and be on leave and doing whatever fun things you want to do on leave will be a good reflection of how you are as a person and of your leadership style. Like I said, my goal, whether in Africa Matters or with Aurum, is to make myself replaceable. And it sounds strange, but when I say I want to make myself replaceable, I want to ensure that the work that I'm doing can be done by anyone else on the team. Because through making myself replaceable, I ensure that any project I set up is then sustainable, that it's the team members that can carry it forth. And I think that is a sign of a good leader. We've had too many leaders who want to be solely remembered for this particular initiative. But if you want to have a proper impact on our continent, we need leaders that are making themselves replaceable so that their legacies of work can continue, so that their projects continue to have impact during their absence without them. And that's what we need to do. So take your leave, enjoy taking leave, and don't feel bad about it. Annual leave exists for a reason. The sixth way in which I deal with burnout, and maybe just a quick recap for those who've just joined, we're now discussing how to deal with burnout. And I mentioned putting yourself first, setting boundaries, listening to your body, annual leave, which you are definitely entitled to. The sixth way would be, the fifth way, would be talking to your colleagues. Very often I think that we have this perception that if we are taking annual leave or if we are dealing with burnout, we are then incompetent. But I want to encourage you that that's not the case. You are not incompetent for burning out. You are not incompetent for taking leave. The fact that you've burned out means that you've put so much into this. You haven't given yourself any breaks or time to breathe or anything like that because you put so much into it. You are definitely not incompetent at all for experiencing burnout. And the best way in which I've learned to cope with my own experiences of burnout is to talk to my colleagues. Through talking to my colleagues, they get to understand what mental space I am in. And I then feel much better because then I know that I'm not going through this experience alone. And very often you'll get words of encouragement and support. And it's important to have support when you are experiencing burnout because for you to deal with burnout and to get out of that experience, you need people around you who are going to be understanding, but who are also going to motivate you to keep pushing, to keep on listening to yourself, to set boundaries. You need people that are going to understand those changes in your life. And it's important that you talk to your colleagues for that reason. So talk to your colleagues and don't feel ashamed because you could find that they're also experiencing the same things. And then you're able to support each other together. Number 6 would be about healthy routines. Set healthy routines for yourself. Now, what does a healthy routine look like? To me, it's different things. It's trying to exercise at least 3 times a week. Not because I want to look like, I don't know, who's a good example? Not because I want to look like a model. Nope, that's not for me. The reason I exercise at least 3 times a week is because of the fact that through exercising, I am able to relieve stress. I'm able to keep my heart healthy. I'm able to keep my body healthy. And the healthier I am, the less stressed I am, the more I can give. So I exercise as a release. I exercise because when I have had a hectic day and I can go and punch I don't know what it's called, but the punching bag at the gym, I feel so much better. Or when I want to run, I often think about the day, reflect on the day. Exercising can be such an important way of dealing with workplace stress. And that for me has become a really important routine for me to do. Then also something that I've been trying to do more and more and more is to meditate. And it's not something I get right all the time, but I've been trying to put myself into a habit, into a routine where I can meditate at least for 5 minutes every day. And more I've been trying to either do it with my team or to do it once I'm at work. Once I get here and I sit at this desk meditating for 5 minutes. And it makes the biggest difference. It just makes you pause in a world that is so fast. And to just be. And it's such a moving experience to just be able to just pause when everything around you is going haywire, and to take a step back. And after doing that, you come back to the work you need to do. And suddenly those mountains don't seem like mountains anymore. Those mountains are not as scary to deal with anymore. So I want to encourage you to just pause. And pausing is so, so, so powerful. Pause, meditate. There are different apps that exist. I'm using one called Insight Timer. It's really, really awesome. I used one before called Calm. Calm was really, really good as well. Headspace is also really good. Or even just to sit with a group of friends and for 5 minutes not say anything. Closing your eyes, inhaling in and out. And for 5 minutes, it will be the most incredible experience for you. So setting healthy routines is really, really important for you. And I want to just encourage you to do that in this really hectic and complex world we live in. Number 7, which is the last way in which I deal with burnout, is to do things that make me happy. And I ask myself, like, what makes Farai happy? Sometimes it's the smallest things. Sometimes it is going onto Instagram and looking at pictures of dogs, because I'm a really big dog fan. Other times it is taking a drive to go and get ice cream. Other times it is having a call with a friend that I haven't spoken to in the longest time, or setting up time weekly to call my grandparents. That is what I have been doing, and these are just small things that make me happy. Visiting a friend, checking out a random dance class, taking my mom out for dinner. Small things are able to make you so, so happy. Playing with a baby cousin. There's just so much that we can do. So I want to encourage you that do things that make you happy, because often if you're in the care industry, you give, and give without looking at what do I actually want to do. And even if it's something like spending time with a loved one, that is so valuable for you to do. So do those things. So I've shared 7 ways in which I deal with burnout. Number 1 is to try and put myself first. Number 2 is being able to set boundaries. Number 3 is listening to my body. Number 4 would be talking to my colleagues. Number 5 would be that annual leave is okay and I'm entitled to it. Number 6, it's about healthy routines. And number 7, it's about doing what makes you happy. And as we come to the end of me sharing these experiences and then responding to different things that you've all said, I want to just share something that is really personal to me. So I've experienced burnout every single year since 2015. At least once a year, I experience a major burnout. And recovering from burnout is so difficult because so much of you is gone. The things that you are joyful are gone. You are despondent to things. You've got a mental distance to this impact work that you love. And it's not sustainable. And it's only this year, since 2015, so after 4 years, for the first time, that I'm saying to myself, Farai, stop and breathe and look at what makes you happy and how do you show yourself the same compassion that you show everyone else. And my goal for 2020 is to not burn out, because it's not sustainable. And I will not be the leader that I want to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years if I am burning out on an annual basis. And so I want to encourage you that take it easy. Work through different experiences that you are having. Set those boundaries, because burnout is not worth it. And sadly, so many of us experience burnout. Statistically in South Africa, 1 in every 4 employees suffer from burnout. And the average age, or the average age range for burnout, is between 25 to 44 years old. No, I don't want to experience burnout until I'm 44. I want to deal with it now, so that the boundaries I set now can help me so much in the future. And so with that being said, I'd really love to hear from different people. What have your experiences been? How are you coping? Is there anything that you would like to share? I see that we've got a comment from Rianne, our co-founder as well, saying that pausing is really important when life is happening too fast. One of the other comments we have from Hamadzima says that these are great and practical insights. Thank you, I appreciate that. yeah, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. If there are any other comments that you'd like to make as well, please do make them, because yeah, we are all experiencing this together. And I want you to all know that you are not alone in your experiences of burnout at all. And there are so many people in the world who experience it. And it's about, how are we coping together? How are we helping each other to cope? Are we creating platforms where we can cope with burnout? And so, if those are the only 2 comments, what I'd like to do now is something a bit unconventional. But if you're watching this webinar now, whether on Instagram or on Facebook, I'm going to ask that we pause for a minute. So, even if you're at the workplace, let's do it. Let's be intentional with our actions. I want to encourage you to close your eyes and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose, out through your mouth. And we're going to do this 5 more times together. In through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Last one, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this session today, this webinar today. I hope that you have learned a lot, and I would just like to encourage you to please ensure that you're able to set these boundaries, and that you're able to recognize that burnout is actually recognized as a disease by the World Health Organization, and that you are able to then be able to set the boundaries you need to remain sustainable within the workplace. If you are in the care industry, we need so much more of you. So ensure that you are resting well, setting those boundaries, showing yourself the same compassion that you show everyone else. And then that is how you will remain relevant, sustainable, and being able to continue changing your community. Thank you so much for joining us on this Africa Matters webinar. I hope that you've learned something. I'd also really, really like to learn from you. So if there's anything else that you'd like to share, please, please, please do share it. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening, day, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and continue to support Africa Matters. Have a good day.